Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Again, I'm going to try to keep all these things really piffy, really quick. So we got a few movies to go through today, so let's just jump right into it. So first, on the 6th of October, I watched the original 1930s Invisible Man. It's one of those Universal classic horror films. This is actually one of the ones I haven't seen before. This is my first attempt watching it, and honestly, it exceeded what I thought it would be. Because there's only so much I think you can really do with the whole invisible person type angle. And um, yeah, it went a bit more extreme than some of the other ones have been, like your Dracula and your Mummy and everything. This one is a bit more violent, more vicious, but it's also really goofy. So, for example, in this, there's this really awesome scene where he gets like figured out quite early in the small town he's hiding in, and so he like strips off completely naked, so he's completely invisible, and he starts running through the streets causing chaos. And there's this moment where he steals somebody's bike, and you see just like a bike on the street, just like it's adorable. It's very cute. All the all the all the effects, of course, are like really dated. It's from the 30s, right? So they do so much they can do. But I found the movie very entertaining. Um it really pulled my attention, and I really enjoyed the performances. And this is one of those things where, like, if you watch the 1930s, they still have those like connections to old school theater. Like, even for like the overacting in it from the older actors, it's hard not to kind of see it. But it's just sort of like how they would do it on stage. So it's that whole transition period. It's still kind of mucky, but they actually still have one of those British constables be like, "All right, what's all this then?" Like, they have one of those in it, which is really fun. Um, is it like scary? No, I don't. I wouldn't call this movie scary, but I'd call it kind of intense. And it probably has one of the bigger kill counts out of all the old classic monsters. He takes out an entire train of people at one point. And there's sort of this premise, and this is sort of the premise for like all these films, except for maybe the last one I watched in this section, where an invisible man can control the world is the idea. And they kind of show you how it could happen. Another thing I really enjoyed in this film that you don't see in the other ones is just sort of the simple logic. And like, obviously these ideas wouldn't work 100%, but the idea of how to catch an invisible man back in the 1930s, like, they have a whole bunch of cops like linking arms and walking forward. Or like they all hold a giant net. Like, you get them cornered and you hold the net, you can throw the net over them. um Again, it's kind of cute, kind of mundane. And one thing I do like is when the invisible man finally dies in the end, he goes from invisible to visible slowly, and I thought that was a really cool effect. Yeah, I mean, overall, it's sort of hard to kind of give a ranking to an old black and white film because it's not everyone's cup of tea. For me, I have no problem giving this guy a 3. I think it's one of the solid classic horror films. I even put it above some of the ones, like I'd put it above Creature from the Black Lagoon in terms of entertainment. And even though I really enjoy Boris Karloff in The Mummy, I think I'd put this movie above The Mummy. I wouldn't put it above Frankenstein. I think Frankenstein's the best of the classics, but this is really fun. It's really fun. I'm really glad I watched it, and it was really good. Okay, then on the 7th, I watched Hollow Man. Yes, a theme. um, Hollow Man is Kevin Bacon, and he's a scientist, and he's working on a formula to turn somebody invisible. They get to work on a bunch of monkeys and a gorilla, and then because they don't want to, he doesn't want to, because so the idea with this one, and this kind of goes back to the original Invisible Man as well, is it's the narcissist scientist, right? But Kevin Bacon's goes even further, and he has like a full-on god complex. And so he doesn't want to lose this project to the government right away. He wants to make sure that he can finish it his way first. Um, so he signs up to be the human in the human experiment, and everything goes well. He turns visible, and just right now, I'm just gonna say, like, the effects at the time, like, it's all CG and stuff, and it's pretty dated. But there's moments of it where it works, but there's lots of kind of goofy shots. But yeah, so it works on him, and he turns visible, and he essentially becomes a pervert. Is the big thing. He's like, and that's one of those things too that, like, I'd say that's probably the most one of the aspects of the film that's the most honest is how uncomfortable women would be working with someone who they know is invisible. Um, you see it kind of right away, and it makes complete sense. Uh, I don't think every man would become a sexual harasser if they're invisible, but the idea of women becoming uncomfortable when they're invisible makes complete sense. Because I would argue most teenage boys would want to be invisible inside of a girl's changing room at some point. Like, just being honest. Um, so yeah, so he becomes, and so his kind of god complex kind of keeps increasing because he's able to get away with so much, so much, so much, so much. Um, and eventually he goes completely insane, and he decides that he's gonna kill the rest of the lab assistants and escape and be like a walking invisible god. Again, to kind of harken back to the Invisible Man. An Invisible Man could rule the world. That's the whole idea. Um, the whole god complex thing and him thinking his god is like really on the nose, especially in the end where there's like an explosion in their underground lab, and two of the characters are climbing to get out, and then he goes after them, and then he knocks him down, and he falls from heaven into this fiery pit of hell. But this one, like, it didn't really hold my attention, and like about halfway through, I sort of just kind of was popping in and out watching it. Like, it wasn't as enjoyable. It's a bit long. It's 2 hours. It does not need to be 2 hours. You could have told this story in an hour and a half. Yeah, I'd give this one a 2. Yeah, I wasn't that into it. I do appreciate the honesty of it. I do appreciate, like, there's more. It's more scary in my mind. It's more of a it's scary to women. I would argue, because again, like, an invisible man, some men would be terrible about that. So yeah, I give it a 2. Didn't really sell it for me. I'm sure there's people who really would give it a much higher, but for me, that's where it's at. Okay, then after that, on the 8th, I watched Hollow Man 2, which I didn't know existed until then. Yeah, it was a straight to DVD or straight to video film, and it's pretty terrible. What I do like about this one is that this one to me has more of the universal kind of fear from the Invisible Man type aspect, because in this one, Christian Slater is your Invisible Man, and he's a special ops military guy. And so he's trained to kill, and he wants to kill. He's going insane, and he wants to keep his invisibility forever. So he's chasing a doctor who can help him, because I guess now that the formula, you only stay invisible for a certain amount of time and then you become visible again. So he wants to stay invisible, so he's finding this doctor to help him stay invisible forever because she worked on the project. That's the premise. Yeah, I mean, there's some like random like boobs in it, but like it's a lot more. I would say the violence in this one is a lot more visceral and a lot more like painful to watch than in the other one. The other one had some good like gruesome stuff too, but they also had some silly gruesome stuff. But this one is pretty solid. But like I found it so boring. It got so, yeah. And see, like, well, the last one was 2 hours. It could have been an hour and a half. This one was an hour and a half. Probably could have been 45 minutes. Yeah, I really wasn't enjoying it by the end. I don't like the ending like twist, thing that they do in it. I found it lame. It's not even like a twist, just like the way they end it is just really stupid. Yeah, I mean, there's some value to it, and some of the effects look kind of cool. There's one thing in like all these films that kind of bug me. So like, if I was to grab this Slimer, right? You see how my hand goes around the Slimer? Well, if my question here is how the invisibility works. So would you be able to see the Slimer's face or not? So if I pick up a gun, would you be able to see me holding the handle of the gun? And for like in my brain, I think the invisibility would cover it, but then I guess it actually, no. The more now that I've said that out loud, I realize how stupid I sound. I'm actually completely wrong on this. It looks fine. It makes sense. I'm a dum dum. This is one of those stupid thoughts that you have sometimes, and you shouldn't like, and you don't realize how dumb it is till you say it. Like, that's literally just what happened now. Congratulations for me. Yeah. So it's whatever. It's. I'd give it. A 1 out of 5. There is some like good stunt work done in it. There is some, again, like some like gory kills and stuff. Yeah, so yeah, I'd give it a 1. I think 1's good. you know, I wouldn't watch it again. I don't think I'd show it to anybody, but if you're interested, take, like, you know, you might get something out of it. Okay, so the last film which I watched last night on the 9th was The Invisible Man by Blumhouse. This one came out fairly recently during the lockdown, I think, like the 2020. So the premise of this one, I think, has the best premise out of all of them that I've saw. Was a woman is in an abusive relationship with this, like, the leading expert in optics technology. She escapes in the middle of the night, and to take revenge, she pretends that he dies, and he invented a suit that lets him project out imagery so he becomes invisible. It's great. It is a very good movie. I think it is very, very well done. Again, it's one of those things where it's a little long. Like the length was still okay, but it's just a little long. There was some weirdness to it, story wise. Like, she takes an Uber in the middle of the night to go to her old house, and then when they get to the house, it's like, 11 o'clock in the morning, and she asks the guy to stay there and, like, to take her back, kind of thing. And it just kind of feels like that wouldn't happen. That Uber driver would not be okay with this. But like, just little things like that. They try to do, like, this twist and a twist and a twist, and it would work better if I didn't see it coming. They already set it up in the film, so it doesn't surprise me when it happens. Maybe they didn't try to surprise you with it. Maybe that wasn't the point, but it didn't surprise me. I don't want to talk too much about it, because, like, this is the one. Like, it's funny that the two bookends, right? The 1930s film and the 2020s film were the one that kept my attention the most, whereas, your late 90s one, early 2000s one, they couldn't do it. So yeah, I don't want to give too much away, because the pacing of the film is perfect, and they do these things, like, little things. Like, I'm a big fan of little things in films. So, for example, when he's messing with her, instead of just, like, like, opening a book and going, like, "Ooh," or whatever, like, something stupid, I can't think of anything. She's, like, cooking breakfast, and he just walks over and just turns up the heat. Just like turns up the heat, and then so it burns, and then, like, starts a fire. Like, that's perfect. That's like that's little things, and it's funny because, like, it's they do this thing where the camera pans and then it stops, and it just sits there, just stops. And so that's what they do in the kitchen. They stop on the food as she goes to get the kid to help the kid get ready for school, and then all of a sudden you hear, like, a click, and you see the fire go up higher on the stove. It was great. It was good. Yeah, I highly recommend this one. This one I'd give this one a pretty solid 5. I think everyone can find something to enjoy out of this. Gets a little bit campy, but it's fine. It's a man wearing a suit that makes him invisible. Who cares if it has some camp in it? The only thing with it is, I saw online that a lot of people, they categorize this one as a thriller as opposed to a horror. I disagree. A lot of people want to define horror in certain ways. I believe, like, you can call it a thriller horror or a horror thriller. I think that's fine. I think that would make sense. But there is some terrifying stuff inside this. So I have no problem calling it a horror. And then, yeah, I give this a 5 out of 5. All right. We'll move on to some more stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. If not, that's cool too. I'm just having fun making them, so it's all good. I'm just being selfish. So have yourselves a great night, a great day, a great everything. Listen to my podcast, the Frames for Thought podcast, if you get a chance. Go into a lot more details about specifics in acting and animation. I love you all. Bye bye.